Magandang hapon po ulit. Mukhang gising na tayo. Anyway, unang tanong ko lang po, ilan ho ba dito ang pwede yung paki-raise yung kamay ng galing sa gobyerno? Okay. Galing sa private sector? Galing sa NGO? So, tingin nyo ba meron tayong balance? So, tingin ko, kasi ipe-present ko ay about inclusive mobility initiatives and its management. So, we'll discuss about the programs, the projects, and the practices. May pagkakaiba ho ba yung tatlong yon? Sa mga government officials, may pagkakaiba ho ba yung tatlong yon?
No?
Ha?
Isa pa rin yun.
Palagay nyo meron. Sa private sector, lalo na sa private sector, meron bang pagkakaiba yung programs, projects, and practices?
Same pa rin yun.
Yes? Yes? So, mukhang meron, diba? So, mukhang nag-a-agree namin. Yung iba, hindi pa sigurado. So, tingnan natin kung saan natin ilalagay siya. So, next, please. So, yung course objective namin is actually to examine the various mobility initiatives, their elements of their success and challenges encountered. So, we'll present different initiatives from globally, internationally, Europe, Asia, and then we'll try to gain greater insights and methods to make mobility management cycle more inclusive. So more on the initiatives. I rather discuss the initiatives because there are many initiatives actually happening. And hopefully I could provide a sort of overview, parang review of related literature and how it's being done. So hopefully learnings for you too. And then learn some sustainability measures for inclusive mobility project or initiatives. Technically, more on the financing, innovations, perhaps role of your entrepreneurs. So, yung outline of my presentation, I'll try to discuss a bit about an introduction, which actually has been given earlier. Pero, I'll try to capture your interest on some issues. And then, inclusive mobility initiatives and their management strategies. Some inclusive initiatives management cycle. This part will actually be discussed later by Doc Doy, but I'll try to have an intro on such. And it's more on the co-diagnosis of the projects, co-designing, co-delivery, co-deployment, meaning how do we mainstream and hopefully replicate such. But I think more than anything else, we'll also try to understand some of the sustainability measures. So as I mentioned earlier, we'll try to discuss the role of financing, innovation, and maybe entrepreneur. So as an introduction, so I think we are all aware the global condition is actually urbanizing. It's been emphasized earlier that, you know, the world isn't really getting bigger. It's really urbanized. And there's a growing inequality gap despite economic growth. I remember I read in the news this morning that the president is all about inclusive growth. So yung inclusive, palaging naririnig, right? Pero are we really familiar with the term inclusiveness? How many of you can confidently say that I understand the word inclusiveness? Isang kamay lang yung nag-raise? So I think yun yung gusto nating i-highlight. Ano ba yung pinag-uusapan natin pagdating sa inclusiveness, diba? And then, so the trend actually is not to talk about the problems. We're more of a solution-seeking society, if I may say. So we need to discuss efforts and policies to protect the poor and give them access to development that comes with economic growth. So later, may emphasize why mobility, why transportation sector is very important. And then understanding the policies and the implementing strategies. You might have all the good policies, but without implementing strategies and initiatives that are aligned in making it more inclusive, we might really have a problem trying to implement these solutions. Sa starter, how many of you are actually from Manila? Not Metro Manila, but Manila. Manila. Oh, so at least there's two. Well, I tried to review the earlier. I thought that most of you would not come from Manila. But, yes, you're from Manila. Good. So anyway, I want to contextualize this issue of of these mobility initiatives under the urban planning paradigm concept. I think this was discussed by Yusek Lontok earlier. But just to highlight, we need to understand that when we talk about urban planning and maybe highlight the importance of mobility here, we talk about population, we talk about the economy, land use, transportation, and ngayon yung term na resiliency, especially with this climate change brouhaha, everything. We need to discuss about the infrastructure resiliency and then environmental quality. There's this particular photo that I like from architect Alcazaren. It's actually highlighting Manila. So, I assume all of us are familiar with Manila. Yes? No? Yes? So when you think about Manila, what immediately comes to your mind? Dirty? Sino nagsabi nun? Magagalit sa inyo si Mayor Erap. Sino pa? Ano pa? Overpopulated? What else? Luneta? At least may Luneta. Are you aware that Luneta is in the list of the best parks in Asia, if I'm not mistaken? Which means that they did some improvements already. What else comes to your mind when you think about Manila? Pollution. O sige, yan yung mga sinabi nyo. When you think about your city, what comes to your mind? The same. So, I think yun yung kailangan nating tingnan, right? Nakikita natin sa iba, diba? And then we also see it from our city. I think what we want is to build this kind of catalyst in our own city. So if we see that, yung isa may luneta, gusto nyo ba, sir, ng luneta? Siyempre, diba? So, sino yung mga nagsabi, alimbawa, taga Marikina, meron ba ho kayong luneta? So, river parks, diba? Sino yung taga Makati? Meron ba kayong luneta?
Makati Park.
Makati Park. Oh. So exactly what we're trying. Do you think the Makati Park is a program, a project, or just, an infrastructure activity? Program. You think it's a program. So anyway, pinapakita ko yung picture kasi hina-highlight dito na there's this call about Save Manila Bay, Save the Zoo and Rizal Memorial. Diba? May more funding for arts and culture, build affordable housing. Merong nagrereklamo sa ugly architecture. So may mga arkitekto ho ba dito sa group na to? May architect? May isa? May engineer? Engineers, right? So nakikita nyo yung infrastructure, tama? So sa Manila ho, anong pinakamagandang infrastructure para sa inyo? Luneta. Ha? So, Luneta, kayo, ano nakikita nyo anong pinakamaganda sa inyong... So, the Manila Heritage. O ano naman yung pinakapangit na architecture sa Maynila? Or engineering building o whatever sa Maynila? Baseco Compound. So, nakikita na natin, di ba? Ano ba yung Baseco Compound? Familiar ho pa tayong lahat doon? Kasi we talk about inclusiveness, siguro dapat maintindihan natin kung ano ba yung mga nasa city natin. So, we talk about Baseco Compound. Why is it ugly? Why is Luneta good, di ba? Why is the heritage houses nice? And is there something we can do to replicate or see this in other cities or the cities where we live in? So I think I want to emphasize that. So meron ding call for Rojas Boulevard to make it walkable, bikeable, safe. So I try to use Manila because it's one of the oldest city. So, and we have this very nice photo. Next. Pugad Baboy. Bring back Pugad Baboy. O, pati yun. I don't know if many of you have attended some of the talk, but some notes on urban planning. You see on the left and on the right. Can you identify where these areas are?
No.
Is it one and the same or is it different?
Different.
Ha? O ilan ang nagsasabing different siya? Okay. Ilan ang nagsasabing the same siya?
Wala.
So parang equal yung sagot, yung iba walang sagot. So actually, the one on your right, di ba parang common siya in Metro Manila, right? Right? The one on the left, meron ba tayong nakikitang ganun sa Metro Manila? On the right. Ano ba? On the right ko. So, dito yung side na to. Meron bang ganito sa Metro Manila?
Yes. Oh.
Ha?
Yes.
Pagbaha! O, di ba? Ang galing ng mga nakikita nyo sa pictures lang, di ba? So, actually, this city is this area is one of the same. This is in Guangzhou. The one on the right is actually used to be like the one on the left. And they were able to do that in 7 years, if I'm not mistaken. So this is a part of Guangzhou. So why am I emphasizing this? Program ba siya? Project ba siya? Activity ba siya? Practice ba siya?
Program.
So you think it's a program, right? So tandaan lang po natin yon when we discuss because I think we will discuss about all these initiatives. Next. Siyempre yung favorite natin, traffic, transportation, and mobility. The one above is like what happened when I think MMDA, correct me if I'm wrong, tried to separate the bus, right? I mean, in just one, right? And then the other one is what happened during peak hour to going to MRT. Tama ba? MRT. Right? Is there something that we can do? And I think in fairness to MMDA, they try to address that immediately after they learn. So it's like, some lessons also, right? So we all know that the buses move people, but on the other hand, how come they all want to use our MRT? Nawala ba yung bus in the area? So those are the things that maybe we need to understand when we try to look at mobility. Okay? On the one below are actually a good model, also done in Guangzhou. I'm trying to get, because we went there and we were able to get this picture. And they were telling us that they used to have really terrible transport system in Guangzhou. But, the impetus for doing such improvement is because of the Asian Games. So, yung mga games, meron bang nagpa-follow ng World Cup dito? So, the games actually play a big role also in improving the city kasi it would attract tourism. So, again, meron kang bigger picture or bigger program that you want to hinge your projects or activities below. So far, you will see the difference on what they highlighted, right, when it comes to mobility. Next. So again, we are all here because we want to discuss inclusive mobility. So it's actually a system or a concept to achieve a more system-wide approach. That's why I try to highlight this picture. I try to ask where you guys are coming from. Some are like from the infrastructure, the other perhaps in the business, the other perhaps on the social aspect of it, right? So we want to have a holistic transportation approach, which actually was highlighted earlier by your previous speakers. And we want to have the process of shifting our car-centric paradigm to a more person-friendly, people, and environmentally friendly one. So I won't discuss the details of the inclusive mobility principle because I think that's been covered, and as mentioned by Dr. I have to do this in 30 minutes. But I want to highlight some basic transportation statistics. I think the video that Ms. Tina showed earlier tells that this is the same data, right? 78 out of 10, and I think it's 69, so 7 out of 10 people take public transport. So still, may bumaba ng 1, maybe that's a good sign. And then, of course, in 2010, we have to highlight the issue of road crashes. Why do we have so many road crashes in Metro Manila? 7 out of 10 poor families have to arrange loans to cover the loss of income of a family member who is killed or disabled in road crashes. We may not be able to really understand what they're going through, but these are some statistics. And motor vehicles are major source of particulate pollution in Metro Manila. And we all know the source is, this was highlighted even in the Partnership for Clean Air, that the issue is really about motor vehicle pollution. Next. So how do we define sustainable transport? I want to highlight the importance of this concept, especially because this will spell some difference on how you will design your mobility initiatives. So it entails an expansion on the levels of service, a diversification of the transportation modes. Many people are asking, me, if having all these tricycles, jeepneys is good or, if they're good or bad for the city. And I keep on telling everyone, at least we have option. Those are the modes that I actually missed when I was living abroad. So it's something, but it's actually putting order and making them work together and letting them understand what's the issue, what are the issues. So it's about efficient use of energy and low polluting technologies. It's about the reduction of health and safety risk. It's about the reduction of negative environmental impact. And of course, integrating the concept of social equity and citizen participation. And I think it's only then we can really achieve what we call inclusive growth. So again, I think it was mentioned earlier, what do we mean by sustainable transportation? Basically, it employs the avoid, improve, shift concept. So avoid if you can avoid that to travel, maybe it's something that worth looking into. Or if you can avoid not to use a vehicle for going to some marketplace, you can use the one next to your community. Or decision of walking, biking, is it possible that I just walk, or it's possible that I just cycle or take the public transport? Or even if you're trying to use your vehicle, how can I make it more efficient? I think the issue is, personally, we have to understand what sustainable transportation meant for us before we can actually translate it to a more community or more family community level kind of intervention. So let us not forget that when we talk about mobility management, it entails not just infrastructure, services, but it also entails our personal behavior. So we need to understand that from this point of, I think that's what we need to understand. So basically, that's about the sustainable transportation framework. Then, so what are the inclusive mobility? I try to get the definition of the programs, the projects, and the practices, right? So you mentioned that programs are like different from projects. So according to what I've read in dictionary.com and Webster, they say that programs are plan of action to accomplish a specified end, plan, or schedule of activities and procedures. So for those working in the government, we all know that we have that kind of objective, right? Depending on the one sitting in the government, they have their own program. So it means it's a bigger scale that we have to look into. We mentioned about urban planning, di ba? Nakita niyo yung pictures kanina. You mentioned about Luneta. You're right, it's a program because you talk about park management. Park management program, meaning ang dami niyong tinitingnan within the program, right? Then there's also what you call project, something that is contemplated, devised, or planned, or a specific task of investigation. So you mentioned about the issues that you've been raising. So it's something that you can come up with a project that can actually be responded immediately, maybe have a time frame. And then, of course, practices and activities. These are specific deed, action, function, or sphere of work that you want to do. So practice becomes a habit, actually. So parang, I think earlier, Raquel of Pasig mentioned about this Carless Sunday. It was not that easy to do, but eventually the community got a hang of it. It's simply an activity because it's actually a practice just within the framework of their bicycle ordinance. So I think we need to step back a little and see where our programs, where our projects or activities are actually trying to situate itself. Next. So again, as I mentioned, because my presentation is actually more on showing you models all over the world, so I try to highlight some of this initiative, and hopefully we could also learn from them. So Europe and USA. I wanted to use USA in particular simply because we keep on saying that the planning system in the Philippines is actually very Americanized. So it's interesting to know, and I've been highlighting this to everyone who care to listen, that, it's not too late for a country. Even US is trying to address those issues that we're trying to address. So the issue that we're having is not unique to us. And it's not impossible, I think. But I think we all need to understand why it is successful on some level on those countries. So, but let's start with the city of Freiburg in Germany, public transport systems, which will highlight the problem, public transport and systems thinking. And then the green city logistics. Paborito ko yung mga buses, so may, mga issue natin sa truck. So maybe there's something to learn from this. The Spain bicycle system, the park and ride strategy, and then New York Safe Street policy program. So actually, Freiburg is now considered in Germany as their green city. It's unique because it's a very small city, 220,000. Is there a city like that here in Metro Manila? Wala, diba? So baka sabihin nyo, ay, hindi tayo makaka-relate dyan. Tama? Tama, kasi masyadong maliit, diba? 155 kilometers of land, and it's located in the southwest corner of Germany. But how did it become green city? I think that's something that we need to try to understand. And just like any cities here in Metro Manila or in any towns in the Philippines, In 1969, they also tried to come up with a traffic management plan. But more than a traffic management plan, they also came up with a cycle path network. So as you see earlier, yung planning nila integrated na yung cycling. And we all know that here in the Philippines, hindi. Kasi we're trying to look at the bigger picture, right? All our cities try to look at the bigger picture. So which means we just look at transportation network. When we talk about land transportation, it's all about roads. Parang nalimutan nga pati pedestrian when it's supposed to be there. And we all know that pedestrian is just an easement provided by the building code, right? So it's something that we have to understand. However, 1969, after 5 years, I think, they tried to make the city center pedestrianized. Here in Metro Manila, do we have a city which you can say that the city center is pedestrianized? Wow, natahimik. Any cities in Metro Manila or in the Philippines na the city center we can actually describe as really pedestrianized? Is there any city? CBD. Which CBD, ma'am?
In Makati.
So ano lang, Makati. Parang ayaw natin magsabi. So yun nga, yung tanong ko, ano yung una? When we talk about pedestrianized CBD, what comes to your mind?
How do you define pedestrianized? Is it the road is totally closed or you can walk around the city center? How do you define pedestrianized?
Here in Germany, they call a pedestrianized city as really close to private vehicle.
Probably don't.
It's really close. It's really, you can just walk. You cannot use the car inside. So, wala, di ba? So, we all agree na wala. But in Germany, they were able to do that. I know, mag-raise yung mga issue. But you know, in Germany, they have winter, the weather is cold, you know, and they can easily walk. But maybe we should also look na they also have summer and they also have terrible winter, but they still close those areas, right? And that's common in many cities in Europe, actually. It's not just in Freiburg, but I just want to highlight because they have this plan. And it took them, now is 2014. Imagine, 1969 pa po nila yan ginawa. And then they also, so we talk about pedestrianization and cycling paths, but we also have to highlight the importance of tramway. You know, this 30 kph, it runs on 30 kph. Can you imagine transportation running just on 30 kph? Di ba? Pag dito sa Manila, nagrereklamo na tayo sa traffic if you're moving at what speed?
60.
20? 40 kph, I think we're not happy, right? Saan ba tayong speed happy? 60. But in Germany, it's 30. And they're the, you know, vehicles actually originated in Germany, right? They have Vox and all these high-end cars, right? And then, of course, but very important with the program with Freiburg is they try to update this program every 10 years. So again, this is an example of a program. Why is it a program? It's a program because it looks at the different aspect of your mobility, right? So I think that's something that I think should be highlighted. Next. Then we go to Austria. So Austria naman, they have a model on logistics. How many of you is like really feeling bad about the truck issues in Metro Manila? Can I have a show of hands?
Again?
Si Trina. How many of you are like really, you know, that hey, we have to do something about the truck issues in Metro Manila?
Yes.
Truck ban? Is truck ban the answer?
No?
No? So, di ba, kahit kayo hindi natin masabi, yun ba ang sagot? Parang, we're not really confident to answer that, right? And I think we should understand where that is coming from. So maybe I'm trying to share, we found this really good study that tried to improve freight capacities, reduction of trips and stop. Yung lang issue ng reduction, pag sinabi mo yan sa mga truckers, medyo magwawala na sila, diba? But this happened in Austria. Reduction of noise from the distribution traffic in sensitive urban and hospital area. I always see some parang warning when it's near the church that you shouldn't, you know, honk your vehicle. But we all know that's not happening. So meron tayong issue on noise pollution. reduce fuel and energy consumption and emission of carbon dioxide, NOx, and the particulates. So this, I think, is the call also of Clean Air Act and the Partnership for Clean Air. But more than that, how did they try to address or implement that? So they tried to reorganize the entire distribution system of the largest department store of Graph. So here in the Philippines, how many department stores? No, we don't have department stores. We have malls, right? How many of those? In your own cities, how many malls do you have?
A lot. A lot of more.
Honestly, sino yung, sorry yung mga taga-LGUs from Makati, how many malls do we have?
There's a lot of more. So,
Mahirap yung marami, we need numbers. I think that's also something that we're trying to introduce with inclusive mobility. We need numbers. We need to understand.
3.
So if we're not really confident on the numbers, something is, we need to review. In Marikina, how many? 5. So here, they only have to contend with 1, and it's already, something. So what they tried is to address that one. Have we tried, we working in the cities, have we tried to address just the malls, the issue of logistics in the malls? Or those naman coming from the private sector, is there anyone really looking at the issue of logistics? We all know that it's important, but have we really tried to look deeper on the issue? So for example, in GRAC, they only have department store, and they tried to also utilize the deployment of electric vehicles for distribution purposes in narrow streets of the city center, especially during large construction works of the city tram line. So you see, there are initiatives that can be done. Maybe when you talk about innovation, coming up with projects, maybe it's something that you might also want to look, especially I think there's a grouping. Maybe the logistics is something that has to be reviewed. I don't know, but I'm just sharing what they've done in Austria. And this, I remember, I also learned is being done in China, especially with China with the air pollution problem they have. But again, we need to emphasize that logistics is a big issue and it's a transportation issue. Distribution, we need to understand. Next. So Barcelona, in Spain, so I'll try to present more the bicycle system, bike sharing. I think Raquel highlighted the importance of NMT, right? And you have all these details. But I just want to highlight that in Barcelona, it's actually managed by the city, and then there's a private partner, which is Clear Channel. It's a media agency. This is very important, I think, because we all talk about the importance on NMT or bicycle, but I think it's also important that we educate the public on why it's important. Without that, it's very difficult. But very strategic ang partnership mo with a media outfit kasi they will automatically promote it, right? So anyway, they try to come up with 400 stations, 6,000 bicycles, and of course, there's registration. So for those LGUs with a bike, project like Marikina and May Pasig, I think this model is something, there's something to be learned from this model. So actually, its purpose is to cover small and medium daily routes within the city in a climate-friendly way, eliminating pollution, noise, and traffic congestion that motor vehicles create. I think we need to highlight that NMT, pedestrianization and cycling should be really part of the system. At the end of the day, it's very difficult to say that cycling is an alternative mode because I don't think it can be an alternative mode. It should be part of the system, and it should be an option, and it should be a choice of the person who would like to use it as an alternative mode for long distance. That's their option, but at the end of the day, we need the service, we need the infrastructure. And I think if we provide more option for the people, for the city dwellers, the better. So for Europe, I think that's the model. And then next is the park and ride strategy. Ito something I think that we're forgetting. The importance of parking lots, right? So in your city, again, for those working in the city, how many of you have identified public parking spaces? Have you tried identified? Is there a unit working on the parking? We might think that you say, hey, the national office should look into this, maybe MMDA, but I don't think it's an MMDA issue, right? Because it's now our city we're talking about. Now we want the park and ride, but have we really reviewed? So I'm just trying to share, but In Rotterdam, it's actually a program, it's actually a project because it's part of the program of the Sustainable Transportation Program. So it's actually a project to encourage the use of public transport means and to assure the availability of parking spaces for those using public transport eventually. So park and ride. And then, of course, they try to close the intercity train station. They guarantee the availability of parking spaces by requiring users to combine park and ride facilities with the use of public transport. And then they try to connect it in their traffic and management system website. Can you imagine that happening in our cities? Yes? No? So those are the things that, I mean, it's not really innovative because it's been happening, but it's something that we can also try to look into. And on the private sector naman, this is where you can also contribute. I think that's the role of, this government and private civil society working together, perhaps. So those are one of the models, like the park and ride. It's part of the program on sustainable transport. Next. Then we go to New York. New York is one of my favorite because not that I live, but I saw it, being transformed. But more than anything else, it's something that it's a place where we can all relate. We can all relate because traffic in New York is as terrible or maybe more than Metro Manila. Right, Miss Tina, Doc Doy, before? Diba? The traffic there was like terrible. Pero look what they did. So one of the most congested hub actually is a working class neighborhood in South Bronx, and where there are several subway. So yung subway, isipin natin mga LRT natin, MRT, and then bus lines, of course. And then what they did is actually to improve by changing the traffic pattern, improve transit connection along better pedestrian signals, crosswalks, and shade trees. So it's something that, we need to look into, that sometimes we try to look at the bigger picture, but there are little things that we can do that can actually improve the connectivity and accessibility. Next. And of course, there are models in Latin America. Sabi nila, magandang model yung Latin America kasi parang tayo, kasing gulo daw natin sila. I don't know how true it is, but maybe all my Latino friends are saying that, yes, we complain a lot. Yes, we do the same thing. We have the poverty is terrible. But let me just show you some of models. Mexico, Buenos Aires, Jakarta, and Guangzhou. I think Jakarta has been shown. But just quickly, Mexico tried to also expand its BRT system. It's now a corridor that extends from the historic center of the city to the airport. Maybe that's something. Piloted a comprehensive on-street parking reform program. Again, here they try to utilize, improve parking. And then they expanded their bike share system and revitalized public spaces such as Alameda Central and Plaza. Lux Walkway in their area. So, Mexico did, and Mexico in 2012 actually won the Sustainable Urban Transport Program Award. Then you got Buenos Aires. I think they also are now moving some initiatives. Maybe we could relate because I understand that the DOC is now trying to come up with articulated buses. It's not really new, it's been happening in other countries, but Buenos Aires try to do the same thing. BRT, articulated buses, bike sharing program, pedestrian zones and widening of footpaths, adaptation of intelligent traffic management system. As you can see, they have protected bike lanes. Now, we talk about bike lanes. Is there a difference between protected bike lanes and shared bike lanes? Yes? Ang bilis si sir. Ano pong difference ng protected bike lanes sa shared bike lanes? Walang makakapasok. But in Metro Manila, what do we have? And what kind of lanes? Miss Karen, yes, you're protesting? Nothing, right? So shared. Do you think we should we should advocate for protected bike lanes or shared bike lanes? Shared protected ba? So it's something. I mean, that's something for all of you to think about, right? And I'm sorry?
Protected.
So that's something, again, we need to understand that within the engineering solution for that. But that's something that has to be discussed perhaps at city level muna. Hindi na yan, I think it's not, maybe for, I think in one of our discussion, actually sa Facebook lang, there's this debate whether highway should have protected bike lanes or shared. And I totally agree that for national roads, I think what we need is protected bike lanes. Why? Because vehicles would, they're supposed to travel fast anywhere. Right? I think we have to highlight that. It's important that they travel fast. At the end of the day, mobility pa rin naman yan, moving people and goods. So that's something. However, for barangay roads, national roads, maybe, and this would entail enforcement, we may come up with a really good shared bike lanes. I mean, not protected but shared bike lanes. So those are some thoughts lang po. Next. And then of course, Jakarta. Jakarta is kind of interesting because it's a national level led car-free day, but initially, once a month lang po yan. And I remember, Raquel was there, we had this training in Hong Kong, BAQ, Better Air Quality, where they actually tried to learn from Pasig. So, kasi I highlighted that Pasig got an ordinance and they do it every Sunday, they try to multiply. Interestingly, they actually learned from us. So I think that's some good news, pero hindi ho yun na-highlight eh. But I know because I've met some of the officials who actually came to me later to ask me, how is it in Metro Manila? How come this little city can actually come up with carless? Now, may issue yung carless. Supposed to be car-free day, diba? But the term was changed in the issue of Pasig simply because there's some, private sector who thinks that it's not really impossible to have car-free day. So, I mean, it's just a wording, but it's actually, the idea is just to educate people to appreciate our streets. Learn from it, try to share the road, maybe learn cycling on the street, utilize the street for other matters that would improve mobility. So it's actually part, again, the project of the car-free or the carless Sunday streets are actually part of a bigger program. It's more of an information, communication, dissemination kind of project. And that's how actually Jakarta is trying to promote it. Next. And then of course, Guangzhou. Guangzhou is more integrated because they try to utilize their subways, bus, BRT, and interestingly, in Guangzhou, motorcycles are not allowed. So that's something. So they have that kind of program po. So yon. Model in 2011, they won the Sustainable Urban Transport Award too. But really, it's transforming. And why Guangzhou is interesting because they did it in less than 10 years. So you would see. And very important, they're tracking it down. Parang every year they have an evaluation. I don't know if that's being done. Even in the cities, are we trying to evaluate all these programs, the projects that we have? So I think Doc Toy would highlight the importance of that in his presentation. So sa Philippines, it's not too late. Now, as I've mentioned, we have these initiatives. We have the Pasig carless Sunday streets. Actually, they want to come up with NMT lanes, bike lanes too, connecting perhaps with Marikina. And Marikina has always been a model, revitalizing, but there are other initiatives that can also be added. Then, there's another one, and this is something that I want to highlight. Maybe there's also something to learn from other cities. So we all know in Metro Manila, I think in the Philippines, very few cities, maybe less than 5, including Davao City, had NMT policy. I think Raquel highlighted the importance of policy. But this time, in Iloilo, it's a different, nauna yung infrastructure, and it's only now that they're coming up with the policy. And they're actually learning from the different cities. But I want to show a video that would hopefully inspire most of you on how the city can work together with the academe, with the private sector. Okay. 6 minutes, and then I think I'm almost done.
Such as bridges, walkways, and bike lanes for the safe passage of bicycles and pedestrians are for the enjoyment and convenience of ordinary Ilonggos who wish to adapt a healthier, more economical, and ecologically efficient lifestyle. This is the next big thing. Iloilo, the bikeable walkable metropolis.
Salamat sa pagkatigayon na may bike lane kami dito sa Iloilo. It's a great thing that we have bike lanes here in the city. It makes traveling to going to my school much easier for me on my bike. Thumbs up to the people who support Iloilo as a bikeable and walkable metropolis. Thank you. In behalf sa tanan nga Ilonggo, kapasalamat gid kami nga natigayon ng bike lane nga ini, especially sa mga bikers ang aton nga syudad. Kani magdamo pa gid. Salamat gid. Thank you for the support that you have given us bikers in constructing the bike lane. It will ensure our safety as we travel, and it will make Iloilo a walkable, bikeable metropolis. On behalf sa pong ating mga sa syudad sa Iloilo, nagpasalamat gid kami nga nadayon ini nga bike lane. Pinakauna sa syudad sa Iloilo ang simbolo sa padayon na pag-uswag sa atong pinalangga nga syudad. I've always observed that there are too many malls in the Philippines. There's an obvious lack of parks, open expanses of space, and bike lanes such as this, so that people will have the opportunity to live a healthy lifestyle. We would like to thank the people responsible for making this a reality where people can walk, bike and run safely. Thank you. Thank you.
How thankful the community is after having such infrastructure. But that's an example of a protected bike lane, right? So I think that's something that, have to be studied. So again, it's the city thanking the president, and I think it's, part of the priority development funds of Senator Drilon. So, that's the reality. That's how the community is thankful for such infrastructure. Next. So again, I won't delve much about the inclusive mobility management cycle because this, I think, would be discussed by Doc Doy. But just to highlight, we will discuss, part of it is actually, and I've been highlighting it earlier, try to have a co-diagnosis of what kind of mobility program initiatives is really good for the city that we live in. Co-designing it, that's why I ask, how many of you are coming from the private sector, the public, and the government? Because we can all learn from each other. And then, with the co-designing and then the co-delivery, there's also a need that, in the delivery of any projects, programs, there should be some sort of social audit. And this is something that you guys, I think everyone could spearhead. And of course, co-deployment. The importance is, I think, after implementing is that we were able to mainstream it. It's not just a standalone program. It's part of a bigger picture. It's part of a bigger thing that we're aiming for. So again, anyway, we will give this the importance of this mapping, and this was highlighted earlier by JR. So the importance of human-centered design programs, brainstorming. So just some examples of how we're trying to do it. Even with the inclusive mobility project that we had earlier. But I think the important part is how do we really sustain it? So when you come up with all these initiatives, it's important that you also think of how you'd be able to sustain it. And just a brief overview of those can be this. Next. So earlier in the project, we try to look into the many mobility, not maybe business models, but initiatives happening. As we've been highlighting, maybe we're not all aware, but within your own cities, there are some initiatives happening already. And I think it's important that we highlight them, that we engage them. So I think we tried initially, so we found out that there are many IT IT hobbies, actually coming up with apps that would help improve the city. I'm not so sure if the government, I mean the LGUs or maybe even the national government is like really looking into, but I understand that the OTC already tapped this network of developers, and MMDA is a good example also of trying to utilize it. But I think it's important to highlight that there are initiatives that are willing to give services even for free. And it's just important that we recognize and highlight those. Next. So it's very important that we find ways to, of course, to finance the initiative. Of course, one of these is government support and initiative. I try to highlight that first because without government support, it's also very difficult to make things move, right? And then private sector partnerships, that's why it's important to also learn from the private sector. Why are they maybe effective and why we're not, perhaps? And how can they help fund or support? And I think earlier Raquel highlighted that in the NMT program. I'm her informal advisor, but for me it's very important that any program, any project is sustained in an innovative way, something that, you know, we could find ways of helping together. Of course, there are international organizations. Just try to Google it. There are many of them willing to support. Even Marikina started with that. And we actually have the UN Global Financing, Global Environmental Financing Funds that never been tapped. And that's something that, you know, the city can also look into. Of course, ADB, World Bank, and we can also crowdfund. Just, you know, there are some that just looking for maybe projects, you know, and they can find ways on making it earn. So those are the things. And I think that ends. Somehow we need to look at these challenges. Let's not forget that in the city, these are our challenges. Air and noise, I want to highlight noise also. Connectivity and accessibility, health deterioration, poor energy use, and economic losses. And then my last slide. My last slide is actually a 1930 cartoons of Manila. So again, I go back to Metro Manila. And here you notice, it's under the framework of tourism, under that program. But here you can see the maps highlighting what's so distinct in this map. It's so graphic. What else? People. So I think earlier I didn't show you any of the people, right? But here it's a caricature. It's a caricature highlighting the importance of the people. 1930s, we talk about people. Our cartoonists talk about people. Can we find something similar nowadays?
Yeah.
Yes, no?
Yes.
Yes, where? This kind of maps? This kind of cartoon highlighting the importance of people?
Yes, for the city.
Yes.
Yes.
Ha? Puro landmarks. So again, I just want to go back, you know, to the past. Maybe there's something from the past that we could learn on. And here, you see really people. They try to move people by all modes. Meron ka pang Kalabaw at that time. 1930s, 2014, and there are more people, but we don't really look into the importance of people in all our initiatives. So, yes, with that, I end my lecture or what presentation. So, thank you.